I'm here to talk to you today for the four corners of global payments. So as said, my name is Gertjan Dewaele. I work for Ingenico ePayments, where I'm leading the innovation stream and the innovation activities within Ingenico ePayments. So that said, I'm going to talk a bit about global payments. I'm also going to squeeze a couple more innovative things in there just to shake things up a bit. Just a very quick word about Ingenico. We're a global payment service provider, so we operate around the world collecting funds for our merchants and accepting payments online and through our Ingenico group also offline, so both in the terminal world and in the e-commerce world. For online specifically, last year we did more than 60 billion of flow processed with more than 1,000 employees. Present all over the world, headquartered actually Brussels and Amsterdam, also have an office in London. So why do we talk about global? So why do we talk here about globalization, localization? Well, it's because that's still, for all of you, a big issue. If you look at retailers, 70% of retailers actually feel localization as very important. This is a study done together with the IRX, and it shows still that still today, in the global world we live in, it's an important thing to focus on, especially if you see the success rate. Because if you see that 1 in 10 retailers are actually not even happy or totally dissatisfied with their online payments internationally. So they still see a lot of hurdles there. A different statistic showing it from a different angle is a study done by Google. Google looked at and asked a bunch of large merchants, what are for you the challenges you face when going abroad? And you see the classical ones like translation, like shipping, but payments is actually on the 4th place. 1 in 3 large retailers see payments as a prohibited issue. It's really a blocking point for them, more than, for example, legal or VAT or things like warehousing. So it really also on payments internationalization remains a big hurdle for the merchants to go abroad. So today I want to talk to you about the 4 corners of global payments, but I don't want to talk to you really only on that sort of different geographies dimension. So we have a bit of that, and I'll talk on the different geographies and on what you can do in the different regions. But I also want to talk from a user perspective. How should you do global payments from a user perspective? And one is indeed doing payment methods and optimizing your payment methods coverage to each of the countries. But there are other aspects. Aspects like giving a seamless customer journey. That's localized to the market. Also an omni-channel customer journey that lets users be on the channel they prefer and that users mix and match the different channels. And things that go beyond payments like engagement and loyalty. But let's start with the first, and let's start with payment method coverage. So there, everyone knows, I think, the challenge here. The challenge is offering the right set of payment methods to your customers. Statistic that not everyone might know, though, is how important this is. If you look at the statistic at the top, 59% of all cart abandons are actually because of not having the right payment method. So it's a top 1 reason why people abandon carts. It's because they don't have the right payment methods. It's not security, it's not trust in the website, it's simply not having the right method to pay. And given all of the complexity in payment methods, in currencies, in all the different countries, this is a real hassle for you as a merchant to solve. So what I'm going to do with you now is go through the different regions, the 4 corners of the world, talk a bit what payment methods to offer and also sort of our perspectives as Ingenico on that market, but then also talk on how you as a retailer can manage this efficiently. So let's start by Europe. Europe, as you all know, big markets, one of the bigger markets in the world, 420 billion euros of volume this year, split more than 50% across UK, France and Germany. But beyond UK, France and Germany, it's a very fragmented market with a lot of local markets with local payment methods, local languages, etc. And what makes Europe unique from a payment context is that since it's so divided markets, it actually really requires that divided approach in terms of payment methods. And they're typically very unique to a given country. So if you take the Netherlands, 60% of people in the Netherlands prefer to use Ideal. Ideal is only available to Dutch consumers. Same goes for the 45% of people using Bancontact in Belgium. So it's really to a specific market that you need to offer specific payment method, which obviously works fine if you're a Belgian or a Dutch retailer and you're maybe looking at the Benelux market. It's a bit more of a challenge if you're an international retailer or an airline, for example, and you want to really cover all of Europe. Another point on Europe, though, is that despite being a big market and a more mature market, there is still a lot of growth potential. Because Europe, only now, 2.6% of the GDP comes from the online economy, and analysts expect that to double by the end of 2020. So we really see a lot of future potential there, and again, it's that localization that will be important. If we now switch to North America, it's typically markets who are viewed together and are sort of international markets in the Western markets. However, they're very different, because North America is one big consolidated market. And they use credit cards almost exclusively. So in that sense, they're a lot more closer to the UK. They're a predominantly credit card market. PayPal follows after that. So it's a lot easier market to enter, and it's typically one of the first markets to enter when going abroad. Interesting fact though, while a lot of people export and expand into the North America and into the United States exporting to the rest of the world is more difficult. And you see the statistics, less than 25% of US merchants are actually happy with their cross-border e-commerce. So it's because they're used to that monolithic market, one-size-fits-all approach, that they often struggle when typically facing Europe. Because suddenly they need to adapt, suddenly they need to deal with languages, and not 2 languages, but 15 languages, and they need to deal with the complexity of payments. So after that, let's move to Latin America. Gets a bit more exotic, gets a smaller market. Latin America is clearly, from the 4 corners, significantly smaller than the others. It's a market with a very high growth, and it's a market with a lot of local specificity. So what you see in terms of customs, in terms of regulations, etc., there's a lot of local customs that you need to adhere to, and also in the payment world. I don't know how many of you know Boleto Bancário, the payment method in Brazil. It's actually quite unique in that sense. What makes Boleto unique is that you pay. So you pay online, you order online, and then you print out a form, you go to the local convenience store, you pay cash, and they scan the barcode on your form. And that gives the confirmation back to the retailer. So imagine that. Instead of having an online confirmation within the second this card is accepted or not, you suddenly have delays of 2, 3, or more days of wait before you know if you can ship the goods or not. So for a retailer, this is very different to manage. It's a very specific thing in Brazil, and it's something really that customers want. It's one of the most preferred ways to pay. But it makes it still a bit more unique. And lastly, I want to talk about APAC. Following the previous presentation, obviously China is the biggest market, but also other markets like Japan, like Southeast Asia. Also Australia and New Zealand, who are closer to the US in that sense. China, obviously, and I don't need to tell you that, it's a very big market. It's the biggest today, and it will grow to over $1 trillion by 2020. So we really expect growth there. Again, more like Europe, it's a market with alternative payment methods. It's a market where you need Alipay, China Union Pay in China, where you need things like Konbini in Japan, where you need local payment methods as well in Southeast Asia. So lots of complexity, really lots of complexity for you to manage as a merchant. And that's what I want to zoom in for a moment now, is how as a merchant do you manage that complexity? Because typically these payment methods requires you to open an office in the country, requires you to open a bank account in the country, etc. Requires you also to get the funds out in that currency. So you'll get Alipay funds in renminbi, you'll get Boleto funds in Brazilian reales, etc. So really a hassle for you to manage. So what we put a lot of focus in our value proposition at Ingenico is actually the full service approach, where we take in the funds for you, we help you expand international. Say you're a UK retailer that simply wants to go to mainland Europe, We'll help you set up that international. You don't need to open offices. You don't need to manage bank accounts. We have those for you, and you just get your funds in GBP. So that's something that we're working on a lot, because we really see that it can help take over that burden of expanding international. If you want to know more, happy to talk about this more, or you can read a couple of reports that we've made around 4 corners of global payments by our strategy team, and something together with IRX in the Passport to Global Sales. Now I want to leave aside a bit the globalization aspect and focus on customer experience. So if you look at a customer journey, it's typically as well very important, also from a local aspect. So 80% of customers actually said that they stopped using a website or stopped visiting a retailer because of not having the right user experience. And this holds true in China, and they see it as one of the very first important aspects. This also holds true around the world. So how do you do that? It's simple things, really. It's simple things that make a payment page work, and I'm just going to briefly touch on the top of the iceberg here. It's things like obviously offering a local language on your payment page. Even if you don't offer the language on your website, you might want to make the effort to offer it on your payment page. Because that's the point where customers are typically the most uncertain. They're spending their money, so they need a sense of security, and they need a sense of comfort. And if you're not familiar with the language at that stage, it can be a conversion killer. So localize your payment page as much as possible. Also do very simple things like number detection, card detection, etc. And use things like tokenization. Let your consumers save their card for future purchases. It makes it very easy for come to return. This is true across all markets, but obviously the localization aspect, again, is important. I'm not going to go in more detail here. We actually have a follow-up presentation which will be held right outside tomorrow by an expert on conversion from our team, which is Sangeeta, and she'll talk specifically more on conversion. So this was just a teaser for that. Third corner I want to address is taking that user experience across channels. And when people talk about channels, they always talk omni-channel. And it's doing payments in store, and then doing payments online, or doing research online, going to a store, maybe things like click and collect, and all these different use cases. And obviously, yes, that is a big trend now, and yes, there is a lot of movement in that space. But being from the innovation team, I actually want to take that a step further. So we have the standard use cases like web to store, store to web, where typically the channels are either online or offline. What if we think on other channels? What if we, for example, think on mobile chat? We heard about WeChat already. Because if you look at the statistics, you see that combined Facebook, WhatsApp, and WeChat, they have almost 3 billion monthly active users. That's half the population of the world. So what if we consider mobile chat as a channel? Can we do something around that? And if you think of it, it's actually an interesting evolution. Because where we had the e-commerce web shops a while back, were basically taking your online store and mirroring it, your offline store and mirroring it online, actually see a trend now, first on social media, which is all around sharing, participating, and now really on messaging bots, which is conversational commerce. Doing business and interacting with a business, not by visiting a website and doing the standard flow, but talking to the business, having that one-on-one personalized interaction, tailored to the brand, but with a full experience in a chat platform. So I've been working a lot around that with the team. We've been prototyping a lot around that. What we've actually worked on and tested with consumers is a chatbot, so an automated chat solution that actually enables payment in the chat. Why? Because we believe that from a conversion aspect, and linking it back to the previous part, from a conversion aspect, it's important to really go through all the steps on a chatbot. To not say halfway through your chat experience, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to move to your mobile website. So we offer a shopping basket and a checkout experience in the chat. And here as well, more than you might think, localization is important. Hey, everyone knows Facebook Messenger, you use Facebook Messenger, you use WhatsApp. But that's what we use here, that's what we use in the US, that's what's happening across Europe. The moment you move to Asia, suddenly it becomes WeChat in China, okay, that you might know. It's also Line in Japan, it's KakaoTalk in Korea, it's Telegram in Russia. And it's all these new platforms that are coming up that are offering actually a lot of more features and are really tailored to that local market. So there again, if you do projects on chat, if you do chatbots, localize them to the platform. Because it's always the question of being where your consumers are and connecting with your consumers in the manner they prefer. And lastly, as the last corner, I want to take it a bit beyond payments. Because yes, payments are our core expertise and that's what we do every day. But what can we do beyond that? Can we help from a payments perspective? Can we help drive customer loyalty for you? And it's important because it helps you engage and connect with the consumer and actually drive recurring revenue. So what we've built, and we're actually launching this today, so it's a public launch today, live from here at NRX. We're doing this together with a partner, with a startup. We're launching a gamified checkout product from the Innovation Lab, which is a very simple concept. Basically, instead of doing a 1 in 10% discount, you do a 1 in 10 chance to win back your basket. The idea is very easy, but it works really well with consumers because it gives you a lot of more transactions because they want to play that game. They sort of feel incentivized to play, and especially they put more stuff in their baskets because they think I'm going to win this for free. So let me add this other item to the basket as well. So it's something we've seen in tests that really works well with customers. And we've actually taken the step to integrate that in our payment flow. Optionally, it's on the merchant's request. But after the payment flow, so after the transaction has been completed, you see that we then offer the chance to play the game, for example, a scratch card or a Wheel of Fortune, and actually test if the consumer has won or not. So it's important we do it after the transaction, because then we at least secure the funds for you. But we offer that dimension of gamification right in that payment integration. Here I show it online. We also have this available on our terminals. So when speaking omni-channel, we will have this on. You can have this online and in your store through our payment terminals. But instead of talking more about it, I actually would encourage you to try it out yourself. Our booth is just next door. We'll have both the demo on Messenger bots and the demo on gamified checkout available for you to try. And especially if you try the gamified checkout demo, the game works live and will actually give you a chance to win some prizes from some of our customers. So with that, I want to wrap it up. And as a last message or as a key message I want to bring to you, when you think about globalization, when you think about taking your business international, don't only think at it from 4 corners of the world and how do I need to approach the different countries, but think on it from a user perspective. First and foremost, how do I do a good user experience? Part of that is customization, is localization. Part of that is just putting the user central to whatever you do. So things like, indeed, global payment methods, but also things like customer journey online and offline, chat maybe, and things like customer engagement and loyalty. So thanks a lot, and with that, I think we open to questions.
Okay, thanks very much for that. That was really interesting. If anyone's got any questions, put your hand up, and we'll come around with a microphone. I've got a few things to get us started. You mentioned some of the payment methods that are pretty well known. So in the Netherlands, for example, Ideal is a huge one. Are there any newer methods that are starting to gain traction and eat into some of those very established ones?
So you see a lot of, it's a good question, and you see a lot of attempts on that. I mean, you see in France, Payleap, you see Payconic in Belgium, who's sort of trying to be the challenger to Bancontact. You see in Germany, etc., similar payment methods as well. We scan the market very frequently for those, but what they typically face is that they don't have a lot of traction with the consumer. So for us to accept them, and for the merchants to accept them, I would say I would take a bit more a cautious approach, see which ones at least win a significant size of the consumer market, and then see to offer them. Because otherwise you might spend a lot of IT money to do payment methods that after 6 months are no longer used.
Yeah, I think that's always the issue. We always see new payment methods coming up, but some of them kind of come up and then you never hear from them again. I think one of the big things is building that confidence in the thing. So I mean, people have to make the choice to pay through it. So you mentioned about that messaging bot, which I think is very interesting. How would you kind of build trust in that, I suppose? Because it is quite a big change when you kind of talk into a robot sort of thing, and and then you're paying it.
Absolutely. So it is indeed a big change. We've done a lot of focus group testing on that.
Yeah.
Because we really wanted to see with the consumer what works and what doesn't. And what we see is offering that payment page as a payment page and not a payment through the chat already builds confidence, because the user recognize sort of the layout of these kind of pages. And they also see that it doesn't go through Facebook Messenger. So you're not sending your card details through Facebook or another platform. And it's also a lot about tailoring it to your brand. If you offer a chat experience that links to your brand, uses the visuals of your brand, a checkout page that uses the visuals of your brand, obviously it makes it a lot easier for consumers to trust.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? I've got one. I'm not sure whether you can answer this one. But I did wonder that with some of the alternative payment methods,
yes.
Do you get a kind of demographic split where younger people are sort of more inclined to use it, older people not so much? I mean, do you know?
We haven't done research on that. It's actually an interesting angle. I haven't seen much research on that. What you see though is that it works a lot more linked to the device.
Yeah.
So if you see on a desktop, you'll typically get more credit cards. If you go on mobile, you'll get more PayPal, typically because people don't want to do the 3D secure process, or you'll get more mobily optimized alternatives like an Ideal, etc. Really per demographic, I haven't seen big changes there. I might hypothesize that the younger, more tech-savvy generation would try out newer ones more.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's still a matter of credit cards.
Yeah.
The one exception to that, there is one big exception, which is specifically to the under 18,
right,
which is for the gaming vertical and for certain retail verticals more important. Suddenly, then you really have very specific payment methods to these generations. Things like PaySafe card or these prepaid cards suddenly become very important because they don't have credit cards and their parents don't want to lend out the credit card. So there we do see that effect.
I suppose the one would be WeChat, which seems to. I have seen that video that Stephen mentioned, and you can basically live your entire life through WeChat, and
yes.
that people are very happy to pay through that. So it seems like you can do it.
So that's indeed in Asia. In China, you see things like paying through WeChat, paying through Alipay that are used a lot. Yes. Because they give the consumer more trust than the traditional banks.
And I just got one more question. I thought the gamification thing was really interesting. What is the game, or are you going to give us that answer where you say we have to come to the stand?
You can No, I won't. So you can customize that based on what your brand likes.
Yeah.
So you can go all gamey and do like a slot machine type of thing, which works for some brands, which obviously won't work for a luxury brand.
Yeah.
You can do a gift box. You can do a Wheel of Fortune. You can do scratch cards. You can do all the different scenarios. The demo we have up now today is a Wheel of Fortune, just with some prizes, but you can really, there as well, tailoring it to your brand is key. Because otherwise people might say, what is this? Is this an advertisement? Is this spam? I don't trust this. So again, what we sell with consumers is that we need to make it clearly linked to the brand's experience. You need to advertise it up front so that you don't have that disconnect when they play. Yeah.
And do you design the games, or do you outsource that to somebody else?
So that's the partner we work with. So we're partnering up with a startup who's specialized in that, and they work on the games. Or value add is the payment integration. And they do either have a number of standards available or customized for the merchants.
Okay, very good. Any final questions before we wrap it up? No? Okay. Well, thanks very much, Gertjan.
Thanks a lot.